But, because she did need the funds high society ladies were willing to pay for her fine penmanship, she found herself included in one society function after another these days. While she attended these functions, it was her duty to take note of all the guests present, observe who seemed to be in highest demand, and then use that information when she compiled the next guest list, making certain those in-demand society members were placed at the very top of the invitation list. Being required, due to a lack of funds, to take on employment had rankled at first. But with time and with the realization that her contributions to the meager family coffers actually mattered, Wilhelmina had pushed aside all semblance of pride as she settled into the daunting business of survival. Because she had been forced to concern herself with the basic necessities of life, she no longer dwelled on what her future was supposed to have held for her. No longer did she ponder what might have made up her happily ever after, especially since she had, at least for a brief moment in time, contemplated allowing Mr. Warren Holland to experience that happily ever after with her. She had eventually come to realize that she hadn't actually loved Mr. Holland, even if her head had been slightly turned by his handsome face and debonair attitude. Those attributes paled considerably when she discovered he was a complete and utter cad, abandoning her the moment he had learned about her father's financial setback, while whispering falsehoods in all the right ears that, "Forgive me, Miss Radcliffe. I certainly didn't mean to cause you any distress by asking you what must be a far more difficult question than I knew, given that scowl you now have on your face." Blinking out of her thoughts, Wilhelmina felt her cheeks warm when she realized she'd been so lost in memories that she had completely forgotten she had been asked a question, and a relatively simple question at that. "I do beg your pardon," Wilhelmina began. "I fear I was so taken aback by your speaking to me that I lost all track of the conversation." The lady flashed a grin Wilhelmina's way. "Shocking, isn't it, that I'd have the audacity to speak to you?" Tucking her dance card up the sleeve of a very fashionable dark velvet gown, the lady rose to her feet and dropped into the empty seat beside Wilhelmina a moment later. Without a "by your leave," she then thrust a gloved hand Wilhelmina's way. "I'm Miss Parmelia Griswold." Having never been presented with another lady's hand before, Wilhelmina hesitated for the briefest of moments before she took the offered hand, discovering as she did so that Miss Griswold possessed a remarkably firm grip. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Griswold, and as you already seem to know, I'm Miss Wilhelmina Radcliffe. Although—" Withdrawing her hand, Wilhelmina frowned. "If you've been out in society for what seems like ages, as you just mentioned, why haven't we been formally introduced before?" Miss Griswold waved that aside with a flick of a gloved wrist. "I don't believe there needs to be much wondering about that, Miss Radcliffe. I've never taken within society, not once since I made my debut at the ripe old age of 19, which was, goodness, 6 years ago now." "You've been out for 6 years?" "Indeed I have. A situation that my stepmother, the former Ida Webster, contemplates on an almost daily basis." Miss Griswold leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Ida has now come to the conclusion that I've deliberately set society against me in an attempt to annoy her." Wilhelmina's nose took to wrinkling. "And have you?" Tapping a finger against her chin, Miss Griswold seemed to consider the question quite thoroughly before she shrugged. "Hard to say. But getting back to the reason you and I have never been formally introduced, I believe it has something to do with me being a wallflower for such an extended period of time. During that time, you, Miss Radcliffe, were twirling around the dance floor, one of society's darlings. At least until your—" Miss Griswold's voice trailed to nothing, as she suddenly began looking quite as if she'd rather be sitting anywhere except next to Wilhelmina at this particular moment. Swallowing a laugh at the look of absolute horror on Miss Griswold's face, Wilhelmina reached over and patted Miss Griswold's arm, an action that surprised not only Miss Griswold, but Wilhelmina as well. "There's no need to feel remorse for speaking nothing less than the truth, Miss Griswold.